he's really he's shameless in intellectual argument. He's absolutely without character, a moral foundation, or even intellectual substance.
That one, The Will and the Many, because you read that and JDO said that was really good as well. So
if you just want something that's just gonna like be like addictive and non-stop action, you know what I mean? Like it's and I kind of want to just read more like genre fiction this year. Yeah, because I got beaten again in the reading challenge, and so I need to like read some things that are like more page turnery. I bought another James Islington book just on my Kindle today, so. The Lycanius trilogy, the first book of that. So I think it's more straightforward fantasy kind of stuff. But yeah, I want to just read more. I'll read that like Shogun novel, I think, because I watched the series and like that.
That one's really big though. I remember that being a chonker. Yeah, like every time I've seen
like 1,000-page.
I think so. I think it's pretty big. No, maybe not 1,000. Maybe like more like 600 or something. So,
oh, well, that's all right. That's basically what The Will of the Many was. I mean, I listened to it on audiobook, but like it was a 600-pager. And I just finished Battlefield Earth, which was like 1,050 pages, and it's good, but it's like I mean, I'm going to talk about it on Rare Candy, I suppose. So I won't talk too much.
But
don't
like, reveal too much,
But it's funny. Like I think it's like kind of I'm half and half where I'm like, this could be edited down a lot because there's a lot of just like descriptions of like, and like then we put this mining platform here and we had to raise it and like all this stuff. And I'm like, I didn't need to know. I'm not even like, I'm just skim reading that part. But
that I actually sent that in the Discord to Glenn. There's a video of Harlan Ellison talking about his experience because he knew L. Ron Hubbard and heaps of science fiction writers and stuff. And he was talking about how L. Ron Hubbard used to do the Jack Kerouac thing where, because it was back in the days of typewriters, he would get like a roll of like paper, like he'd buy it on rolls, put it in the typewriter like that and just like rip it off as he went. Like, just so he could keep going, because back then was back in the day. And this is what Ellison said as well, you know, you got paid per word. So like you would like, it was like 3 cents a word or something like that. You'd write a 3,000 word story and then you'd get, and this was back in like fucking the 60s and 70s. So like that's $30, isn't it? I think so, or something like that. But then you'd be set, all your rent, all your food, just from one short story. Like that would be so cool. Could you imagine if that was your life? And this was in New York and stuff too. So back when it was probably really cheap and scungy and possibly better.
Yeah, I'd let it rip if that, like maybe I'd use a fake name or something. But like if it was just like bullshit I was writing. But like why not? Like just go off onto every little tangent. Because like he appeared in some other book I was reading, and then like it said something about like he had an ability to write just like super long stories without making a single mistake, just like non-stop, just never like. And this book kind of has that feel where it's just like, I mean, he probably did edit it a bit, and I think because there's a little bit of stuff where it's like he's sort of trying to like impart some like science, because it's kind of late career thing. I think he wrote in the 80s or something, so he's trying to impart some Scientology sort of wisdom, I think, through it a little bit. But so there's some things I'm like, is that in there trying to teach some lesson? But anyway, I won't go on about it too much. So I'll save my takes for the Rare Candy Pod. But it was fun. I'm glad I read it.
I do think just on while we're on the tangent as well, like the pulp stuff is those guys could like pump out shit, and the reason they did that was because they had to, you know, like because if you were literally decided, oh, I'm going to be a writer, I'm going to live off short stories back when you could, like you just had to produce. But then again, I'm just like, you actually didn't have to produce that much because they actually paid pretty well. But like they don't anymore. Like I think the last short story that I sold, I got like it would have been under $150, and that's pretty good.
Yeah,
Like,
I'd be
so,
psyched for that. I've never got paid a single cent. I mean, I haven't written that
yeah.
much, but like I've just been like honored to have like a website publish my story. I was like, oh, that's so kind of them, and I'm like, oh, I'm just providing free content
Well,
for them.
you've done your zine and people have paid for
Yeah,
that. So
true, true.
I think that's the same thing, really.
Oh yeah, yeah, you're right.
But anyway,
Maybe I got a
welcome
nickel
back
for
to
10 words. Sorry,
you
interrupting you.
you ruined the intro.
Oh,
No,
no.
that's all right.
Cut.
Welcome back to the Getting Lit podcast. Last episode it was our Christmas episode, and now we're back for 2025. And this episode we are talking about Freud and Hitchcock, who kind of go together quite well because Hitchcock is such a Freudian psychoanalytic filmmaker. Pretty much you can pick any film of his and you'll find something Freudian in it, but whether that's he was a student of Freud or whether it's just that was kind of in the air when he was coming up, I don't know. Maybe we'll investigate that. And we'll also be looking at Freud's Civilization and Its Discontents, which is one of my favorite books of his. We actually read this. We were going to do this a few weeks ago. So hopefully our minds are still fresh with everything that it says. It's not, I think there's a lot there. And one thing I actually didn't flag this with you before the podcast, but I'd like to get your insights because you've read a bit of Rudolf Steiner. I was wondering if was there anything there, like in terms of, it seemed like they have some cross-pollination, pollination, sorry, with some of their ideas,
Interesting. Yeah. Let me think of the Steiner connection. I mean, like the
Yeah. You don't have to do that now. You can
okay, all right. I'll just leave it in the back of my mind if anything pops up. Yep.
Yeah,
because I got nothing right this second.
But yeah, the other thing I just wanted to briefly touch on as well, before we get into it, is that I'm just writing up a piece at the moment for a pretty well-known website about this. Did you see this New York Times thing about the idea of the literary man disappearing and how
maybe
so
I saw
stupid.
a quick meme or someone like quote tweeting about it. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, probably me. But yeah, like yeah, I just read this and like it kind of made me mad, but also I was kind of just like, oh, it's just a clueless Gen X creative writing professor writing an opinion piece. Basically, he was sort of saying that, men don't exist in like the literary sphere anymore, and that's a problem because they're all going to like Trump and the manosphere and stuff like that. And I'm just first of all, it's really funny as well because he kind of skirts around the issue, which is that men aren't in the literary sphere anymore because they're not allowed in.
Yeah.
like,
yeah, I think that's the
is
context I saw the quote tweets were just like, I wonder why, and then like, quote tweeting some other like article or some other thing.
Which is like, all the literary agents, all the publishers, they're all like, we don't want to hear from men. Everyone else but men, And then this guy is like, oh, there's no more literary men and where have they all gone? And like, he had this idea that, well, because they're not there, we need to welcome them in because they'll be highly refined and literate rather than, going to Andrew Tate or something like that. And I'm just like, motherfucker, do you know about like what's going on in podcasts and stuff like that? Honestly, I can honestly say, like Rare Candy, TPN, Art of Darkness. These are all people I've talked to for this piece as well. So I'm just sort of a little bit of a foreshadowing there, which I'll spruik that on my socials and everything when it comes out. But like all those podcasts, I can honestly say I've studied literature when in my undergrad and stuff like that. I've been to seminars, all of this sort of shit. These are the best conversations that you'll ever hear about books. You don't get this on like NPR or the New York Times or things like that because there's a sort of candor in this space, I think, and it's not about anything other than liking the books or experiencing the books or the works of art or whatever. I just found it really interesting that this guy just doesn't even know about this. And I mean, it's a small kind of scene and subculture, but like I still think it's really influential, and I just think it's important to put that out there. I don't know if you agree or not, but
Oh,
I'm
of
sure you
course.
do.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, all those kind of
Mm.
podcasts, Agitator, all those like, they're the best
Yeah.
conversations because otherwise you get like those Guardian piece where they just like have, oh, this is a triumph of the human spirit told through like a transgender African lady's whatever. You know what I mean? Like it's just like that thing they worry about making sure they don't say anything that could be misconstrued as like misinterpreting the text. Whereas like the podcast you mentioned is
Hmm.
like, I'm sure we get this shit wrong all the time, like what it's meant to be or whatever.
Mm.
But we're just exploring it, and it's like that idea of media literacy. So if people like think like I have to demonstrate that I'm literate medially, and then they just like give you some like boring kind of like rundown of the like
Mm.
plot kind of thing. And yeah, and then it's just always got to be like, how does this like advance this minority group's like viewpoint or whatever. It's like it's just tedious,
Mm.
like, and yeah, just to just not think like, yeah, there's just like the lacking of self-awareness as to why like there aren't like literary men. Like, do they mean there's not just like the great American novel written by a man is not coming out anymore? Like all men just writing
I
like
think it,
genre
yeah, I think
fiction or
it's
something?
that. I think it's that, but it's also like men like aren't in the literary sphere, whether that's, reading it or writing it.
Mm.
And, once again, I say there's a reason for that. It's clearly obvious for anyone who is seeing like over 70% of all literary agents, editors, publishers are all women. So it's a very female dominated, industry, and they're all like very ideologically against men. Like
Mm.
they literally say this in their like what they're looking for when they want to take on projects and stuff like that. And that's no, like that's fine if that's what you do. If that's what you're gonna do with, like, I don't think it's fine, but if they want to do that, fine. But you can't be complaining about there being no men when they've been just
Mm.
sort of shunted out, or gate
They're
kept
probably
down or
also
whatever.
coming from this viewpoint of like, oh no, we've lost the male market. You know what I mean? It sort of comes
Mm,
off as that thing. It's like they have money that they could be spending on books and things, and like, so how do we capture that market again? Is kind of
mm,
how it's like sort of comes across. Whether they mean that or not, but that's how it sort of reads to me. And so it's just like,
yeah.
yeah, well, you know, tough shit. You
I
lost
was
it.
talking about this with uh Jared Clickstein today, who, I don't know if it's public knowledge or not, but he's going on a fairly big podcast soon. So I'm not going to name it because I don't know if he wants that to be named. He's coming on ours soon.
That's
And
it.
that's
That's
the
the one
big
you're talking
podcast.
about.
No, 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 no. No, but like we're not that. Like I don't think Agitator and Art of Darkness or TPN or RC are that, but like I still think it's a very influential sphere because there's like, I've spoken to these other creators, and like you would be very surprised who is paying for this and like listening and stuff like that. And it is a lot, there are a lot of people in like the culture industries, like who make movies and write books and all of that sort of stuff. So it's just very interesting how little these people who write opinion pieces for the New York Times actually know about these things. They're
Yeah.
not media literate, perhaps, in like the internet podcast sphere.
Yeah. There's many types of media.
Hmm.
Yeah, that's cool. I look
Yes.
forward to reading your article.
Yeah. So yeah, I'll send that to I'll put it up somewhere. Podcast listeners, if you want to read that. But anyway, on to Freud. So is this your first experience with Freud, Fresta?
Yes, yes. First Freud.
Yeah, and
It was cool. Like,
this is perhaps his most accessible actually, this one.
yeah, like I mean, I think I'd always been a bit poisoned against him. Like the opinion tended to be like, oh, Freud sucks and Jung is the cool one. But I mean, I haven't actually read either of one of them before. So I've read more Freud than Jung I have
Mm,
now. But like I liked it. It sort of was good in a challenging kind of way where like, because he's obviously like materialist atheist, and there's like, he's
mhm,
sort of trying to do the like explain, you know, essentially explain away God kind of thing. But like, I don't necessarily just start reading that and start being like, ah, fuck this guy. I've kind of like used it as like, okay, these like arguments like are plausible and they make sense. And like, so it's kind of a good, thing to like, I don't know, challenge yourself with, I think. And, they are interesting, coherent arguments for sure. And again, it's like, it's not like, I don't view this as a battle of who has
Yeah,
the best argument or anything.
yeah, the start of this essay that he does talk about God a lot, and he kind of goes on a little bit of a new atheist, like God exists because evolution, like not
Yeah,
because
yeah.
evolution, but like sort of he kind of explains an evolutionary kind of genealogy of why like religion exists, and
Mm,
then he sort of moves on to civilization and as a whole, and how that kind of takes the place of God and religion and things like that.
yeah.
But this one was written in I think it was written in 1929 and it was published in 1930. So obviously a lot of shit was happening in Austria and Germany at the time. And so I think a lot of those civilizational kind of questions came up for him. But if you haven't read Freud before, like the kind of I guess cliche of him is that like my mum always used to say whenever Freud came up, like, and he didn't come up often in our family because we're not the most intellectual. My family is not the most intellectual, but like it would always say, oh, he's obsessed with sex. It's all about phallic symbols and like the Oedipus complex. The idea that everyone wants to fuck their mum and kill their father, sort of thing. But there's much more to it than that. And this one is this essay is a really kind of accessible way into it. And I think, bizarrely, I actually think that once he strays away from the psychological and more into the social, it gets more convincing to me. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
But of course, the psychoanalyst would say, well, that's a defense mechanism because you're not addressing the fact that you want to have sex with your mother or something like that.
I don't
But
think you want to have sex with your mother.
no, I don't.
Um,
But yeah, so yeah, and Freud obviously comes up. His career begins in the 19th. Well, he's sort of born in the 19th century, and it's his ideas pretty much permeate the 20th century. Like so much psychoanalytic Freudian language is just like we just take it for granted. Like people talk about things like repression, like really defense mechanism, like all this sort of stuff. Ego ideal, all this kind of nomenclature that we still use today. And so I think it's like and the unconscious as well. I think probably the unconscious is the really interesting part of Freud because it's almost where he gets kind of spiritual, even though he's kind of like a materialist atheist, because the unconscious is not, and all of this stuff he also never. I'm not sure like if he like ties any of this stuff to the brain per se, but he's talking about the mind, and the mind is not. I don't think the mind's a physical object. So I don't think he's purely physicalist in that way. But yeah, so he's basically, he's got his own sort of trinity with his idea of the mind, which is, the ego, the id, and the superego. And, so the id is like the, your base natural kind of desires or instincts. Your ego is your kind of self-perception, and your superego is like your conscience. And so all of these things kind of work together to make you a whole functioning person, I guess. But basically psychoanalysis was to look into how this sometimes goes awry and what happens with like mental disorders. And he's usually kind of playing with those ideas to trace out how mental disorders kind of happen when the self kind of interacts with society and so forth. So that's a really like brief and very simplified kind of idea about what he's trying to say. But the interesting thing about it as well is that he's coming up. He was influenced by Nietzsche. I don't know how much Nietzsche you've read, but
yeah, a bit.
a bit. Yeah. So he
Not
was
all of it.
yeah, he was influenced by him a bit, which you kind of see in a lot of his ideas, um, particularly about what to do post religion, post God, and everything like that. He's often grouped with Nietzsche and Marx, as well as they're often called they're what they bring in terms of philosophy and theory is often called the hermeneutics of suspicion, which means like suspecting that there's more going on beneath the surface, where Nietzsche's all about it's all about how the will to power works, for instance, and it's not just about morality or whatever. Whereas, and Marx is all about obviously, the economics and class being this thing that you kind of have to uncover. And Freud is more about uncovering the self, which I think it's interesting that all of these, Nietzsche's probably I don't know about Nietzsche. I can never tell if he's like he is kind of atheistic, but kind of very mystical in a
Yeah,
weird way. He's an
I think he's
atheist
very
mystic.
mystic. Well, I think
Yeah.
like Nietzsche's sold to you as like an atheist kind of philosopher. Like it's kind of like, saying with the Freud and he's obsessed with sex. There's these like pop culture ideas of like Nietzsche's quote of
Mm.
like God is dead, but it seems to be more like he's sort of lamenting the fact that like modern
Yeah.
materialistic society has killed God in like whatever, just a symbolic sense or something like, and that, it's like sort of trying to like, and he's grappling with it too, I guess, because he's like, was a modern man or whatever. Like, so it's like, yeah, he's very mystical, but I think because he was kind of like up and down, I think there were sort of like moments of like passion and stuff, and then tempered by
Mm.
maybe a more like rationalistic moment and stuff like that. But yeah, I don't know. I guess, you have to talk to like a proper Nietzsche scholar. I've just read a
Mm.
couple of, maybe three or four of his books, and I read them a while ago when I hadn't read much metaphysical stuff at all. So, like the Antichrist is I guess his most atheistic book that I read, and that's a pretty good one. But again, it's sort of more like he's sort of positing like what next kind of thing, and I don't think he wants to resort to just like atheist materialistic. He's trying to like,
Yes.
I don't know, it's hard to say. I haven't read him in a while, so but I mean like something like Thus Spake Zarathustra, like he's clearly like positing like a higher, like an
Mm.
evolutionary state for man, but like seems to be drawing from some kind of like divine kind of like ideal or something like that, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. What next is a real but at the same time, I think, yeah, that's his whole process of what's called genealogy, like the genealogy of morals, and it's about like sifting through stuff to get to like the bottom of it and like what's going on, and like so that's why I say they're part of this like school of
Mm.
suspicion, which became such a big thing in the 20th century because once God was killed by modern society, like it was like there was still all of these forces working on people. So it was like, what are those forces? Because they
Mm.
can't be God anymore. Like they can't be like anything spiritual. So they try to find these, hidden forces that work beneath the surface. And so Freud's is really directly kind of to do with more the self, I guess, and the self's interaction with society and how that makes someone disordered psychologically and makes societies disordered psychologically as well. But the interesting thing about this is that I kind of go with Chesterton on this. I didn't always, by the way. I used to be kind of in this school as well. But in Chesterton, that old quote where he says something like, if you don't believe in God, believe in anything. And I think that's
Mm.
kind of what they're doing here because I just read this now and what Freud does with the mind or the psyche or whatever, it's like, mate, you're still doing mysticism.
Yeah.
Like you're trying to make it really kind of materialistic and scientific and whatever, but it still seems very kind of not mystical but mystic, like
Yeah.
it's still very mysterious and like there's some, you know, not necessarily immaterial, but like well, the mind is immaterial, really. So he is dealing with like stuff that is metaphysical, like you're saying. And that's why I kind of thought it'd be interesting to bring in Steiner, who I haven't read, but I know you have. So I don't know if like that's relevant or whatever.
Yeah, I guess it'd be just mainly how you could sort of like contrast them with each other. Yeah, obviously they're both sort of like Steiner is like Austrian too, and like there would have where Freud was coming up, there would have been tons of like theosophy and just all kinds of German mystical nonsense going on, or not necessarily nonsense, but you know what I mean? Like I like that stuff. I'm not trying to dunk on it. But yeah, like I think he's sort of. You know what I mean? With this mystical stuff too, like you get into some of these books where they have really technical explanations to how all these like spirits, like Steiner, like you read like what's it called, occult science and explanation or something like that, and it's just like it's a lot of information. You can, and it's easy to be very highly dubious of it, but you have to have like I think to know if that stuff is true or not, you would have to have had the like quote unquote mystical experience of those beings and entities. But it gets into these like technical discussions and like explanations of how like the world came to be about and things like that. And so like, Freud's just doing that with the mind and like, replacing like entities and spirits with, whatever like mechanisms of the mind. Like, yeah. And in our age, it's easier to be like, well, Freud's explanation makes more sense, but it's like how much of that is just us being like raised in this sort of modern age where like those kind of explanations are the ones you're taught in school and that you don't get made fun of for having. And once upon a time, like Freud's explanations of things would have seemed ludicrous, and someone like Steiner saying like, oh yeah, it was the gods of form and all of this stuff that through the Venus evolution of the blah blah, you know what I mean? Like they would have been like, yeah, that's way more makes sense. Like obviously we all know that there was the Jupiter evolution of blah blah, the Earth and all this stuff like that. So I would say it's just like, yeah, I don't know if I could see too much like Steiner influence on Freud, maybe more like a reaction, like to he just sees people like that maybe as like a quack or something like or a fraud and just trying to like, no, I want to give people like a more enlightened, mechanical kind of explanation for these things. And I think they all can just kind of like work together, like, one
Yeah.
one doesn't exclude the other.
Well, I think they kind of came up around the same time, so that's why I think it's interesting, like, to kind of compare them. Like Steiner being really, really about the spiritual, and that's what, he leans into that. Like he knows that it's something new, that is perhaps he does. I don't know how much influence Nietzsche had on him, but he does
a lot.
kind of acknowledge that kind of the modernity being the death of God sort of thing, but he still leans into the spiritual because at some point, like if you go in this other direction, you're still, like I said, you're still dealing with mysticism. So he was like, all right, let's deal with mysticism then, like, and go this direction.
Yeah, I think with like
rather than
Nietzsche, people went one or two ways with him. Like they were like, all right, God's dead. Like there is no God. Like how do we build meaning from the universe as material? And other people went like, oh, God's dead. Like how do we like reincarnate him? Or how do we like, whatever, something like that. So I think, yeah, like Nietzsche seems to have
that's
influenced
very
everyone.
anime. That second one is very anime, isn't it? Like how do we resurrect like some
Yeah,
dead
yeah, yeah.
god or whatever?
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, so but yeah, Civilization and Its Discontents is a kind of a he's sort of the essay before this, I believe, is his one on religion, which is the future of an illusion. And so he sort of just poo-poos monotheistic religion in particular, but religion in general. And then he's sort of jumping off this for Civilization and Its Discontents. But basically he says that he's sort of exploring the tension that's between, human instinctual desires, so primarily for love and aggression or destruction. He often kind of terms these things as love being eros and aggression and destruction being like thanatos. So they're both like old Greek personifications of those things. And then he talks about the tension between those instinctual desires and the constraints that are kind of imposed by civilization. And so he's saying that humans are driven by the pleasure principle, which is, we seek to maximize happiness and minimize pain. And at that point, it was really interesting that I thought he got into almost utilitarian stuff there when saying all that stuff about pleasure and pain. And it's just like, you sound like fucking Jeremy Bentham or whatever. Like, but again, it's like, obviously these things were in the air. But I think it's really interesting. And this is something that I think, Palia also talks about as well in Sexual Persona in particular, and also she's very influenced by Freud, and psychoanalysis. But, the idea that civilization offers protection and stability, but this often conflicts with these sort of not baser instincts, but instincts for love and instincts towards destruction or aggression or all of that sort of stuff. And this tension kind of creates dissatisfaction, I guess, is what the main thesis of the book is. Which I don't know. What do you think about that? I kind of like it's kind of because Freud has permeated so much of our culture, it kind of reads very obvious, like it's something that we already kind of internalize. But at the same time, we got to contextualize it and say that's actually a pretty kind of profound point, I guess. At the time, it was anyway.
Oh, for sure. And yeah, like even now, like I'm reading it and being like, yeah, this is pretty interesting. Like it does, yeah, feel like obvious to a degree, but putting it into like precise, like philosophical, like language and like, some of the sentences I had to read a few times to like sort of make complete sense of what he was getting at. But yeah, I guess it like left me with this feeling, like, not that it was like, again, a profound realization, but it's like there's sort of like no way to construct a society where everyone's kind of happy. Like there's always going to be some like pressure points and release valves, and like some, inclinations are going to be allowed and others like have to be kind of squashed, and then that creates a neuroses. But if you don't squash that, then it creates like discomfort or pain or whatever to someone else who has to suffer that. Like, it gets you just like thinking of the society as just this like big machine of like cogs and gears, and like you're just constantly tinkering, trying to like eliminate all the inefficiencies and problems. But like, it's sort of just like is impossible to like make that so like every single cog and gear is 100% happy. Like, and not even just on like an economic sense. Like it's because obviously like people who are like wealthy, like often are like neurotic and like have, their desires aren't able to be like sanctioned. So yeah, I did find that stuff very interesting though. Like I said, like you said, it was a few weeks ago we read it. So it's like, I can't remember exactly the arguments he put forth, but I'm glad you are able to summarize it well.
Yeah, I've read it a few times.
Yeah, I can
but
tell.
I always find something. I always find something new in it. Every time I go back to it, and it's important to go back to these kind of, dare I say it, in the Freud episode, seminal texts, because like this stuff really shaped like. Not just, and we'll see when we talk about Hitchcock as well, like not just, philosophy and psychology and all that. So it really shaped like media and art and stuff as well. So it's like, it's kind of like good to, dig into this because you can see where a lot of this stuff that like artists really actively took up and employed, you can see where it kind of derives from. Particularly the Jewish ones, they love psychoanalysis and Freud. Like if you watch any Woody Allen movie, for instance, like it's just he's always on the couch. There's always some kind of like psychoanalytic psychodrama going on. But yeah, basically Freud says in this book that civilization is both a battleground for all of these sort of drives. Civilization tries to channel eros into constructive social bonds, like so marriage, nuclear family sort of stuff, like is an civilizational attempt to, control the erotic energies. Like, whereas, if we didn't have civilization, everyone would just sort of be fucking each other and just chaos, sexual chaos, which is kind of what we got at the moment. So and then also sublimating and channeling, death drive, destruction, thanatos, aggression, all that stuff. I think a really good example that he didn't use, and maybe it's just the time it was written, in terms of the way a civilized society deals with aggression, is sports. Sport is like, the older I get, and the more I understand about the world, the more I really appreciate sports, even though I'm not a huge spectator of sports or anything like that. But it's actually civilizationally vital to channel masculine aggression into a safe, semi-violent, but not really violent, more kind of competitive, like physically, into that. Like, if we didn't have sports, I think we'd be even more fucked than we already are, you know?
Yeah, for sure. And because you see, like, like bored teenagers and stuff like that, like they are prone to like sort of aggressive, like, or not even necessarily violence, but like they just have like an aggressive attitude, and they're out there like smashing street signs and graffiti and like, like, yeah, I played a little bit of sports as a kid, but then I got like into skateboarding through, like, that was kind of like my channeling of my, like, that urge. I think that was me sublimating it, because you're still breaking stuff and you're breaking rules, and, you like, but you're getting your energy out, and you're also feeling like senses of accomplishment as well. You know what I mean? Which sports gives you as well. And then you also, like, you sometimes fail at things, so you learn how to like take an L as well. So yeah, I definitely think, because yeah, if you just see people who are just like the teenagers that like just completely have nothing to do and shit, they live in some shit town and their parents are super poor, they just become like quite destructive, like, without anything to sort of channel that.
And as Glenn from Rare Candy says as well, with sports, it's like, it's really objective. Like, there's a winner and a loser usually. Although I do think with this, I don't know if I've gone on this rant yet on the podcast yet, but I really think the Olympics especially should get rid of all sports. This includes skateboarding. I'm sorry to say, for
I agree.
That includes judgment. Like,
Yeah.
So it should only ever be like, javelin or whatever, whoever threw the furthest, like
something quantifiable.
Yeah. Like,
yeah, no, skate judging is stupid. Like,
yeah,
I agree totally. And not even, I think skateboarding shouldn't be in the Olympics just like for other reasons, but like, I just think it should be separated anyway. I never thought that, but yeah, totally agree. Like, it should just be like, if there's an objective measure, height, weight, distance, like speed, time, something like that, then there you got a clear winner. When it's like some artist, it's not a sport anymore, it's an art.
Yeah. And this is coming from someone as well who loves, and this is me doing the gay thing. I love rhythmic gymnastics. Love that shit. Love ice skating, like the figure skating. Love that shit. It's fun to watch, but also it relies on like human judgment. And like, I think the Olympics and like that sort of level of like sportsmanship just needs to be about like pure numbers and measurements and shit like that. Not like, you don't want a panel to like decide that. You want like physical reality and like, the athlete, going up against, their limitations and the limitations of others. You want that to be the deciding factor in a context like that. That's a tangent, but whatever. But no, I do, right. Ultimately I'm saying that like, sports, especially for men, are a really good, kind of sublimation of aggression. Like, because this is something as well, I don't know if I've mentioned on the podcast, but like, I don't think people, non-men, i.e. women, realize how like, realize that what those feelings are like when you're like really fucking angry and like aggressive and you just need to like get it out.
Yeah, it's like my fiance just be like, well, don't worry about that guy that runs the post office. Like, no, he's a fucking idiot. Like,
I need to kill him.
Yeah, I'm not going to.
Or do something that mimics killing him.
I'm mad that he makes me have the thought of punching him in the head. Like, I'm not going to do it because, like, yeah, I'll end up in the papers or whatever. But, like, yeah, it's just, I don't think women truly try to understand that stuff. But they sort of sometimes try to pretend like, no, like, I get it too. You think I don't understand it? It's like, no, I don't. Just like I don't understand why you're in this, like, social game at your work with the chick who, like, said your bag was nice or whatever.
Oh yeah, I'm never gonna understand women. Like they can't take compliments. But anyway,
Well, she's like, it's not a compliment. She's saying that because she's trying to actually sure.
Oh, by the way, if you ever do go postal, you just let me know beforehand. So like we'll plan it so we can have like a really good
Live
like
stream.
yeah, or no, or like a really good last episode that you're on before you're like shipped off to the penitentiary or whatever.
Yeah, nah, I'm all right at channeling those urges. I've lasted this long. I'm probably chilling out more as I get older. You should have seen me as like a 20-year-old. I was in arguments with just randoms on the street all the time. Like,
Really?
yeah, it doesn't happen really anymore. Now I'm just like, understand it. I finally like learned it's not worth it because I don't feel good afterwards. Like, it's not like I'm like, yeah, I won that argument or anything. I'm just like mad that I can't just like listen to my audiobook without thinking like, what the fuck? No, he shouldn't have been parked there. Like,
Well, that's like my I don't know my I hope my parents don't listen to this, but like when we were at Christmas, we went to my parents' house and my dad is now like it's so funny how like boomers are just so like 10 years behind everyone else. And my dad is like started to watch these like you know those videos where like based guys like debate stupid women.
oh
Like,
yeah. The Jerker or whatever.
yeah, the what?
I think there's some guy Jerker. Or maybe
Right.
he's not that kind of thing. I've seen like 30 seconds of one clip of him.
Yeah, so but I don't know, but like it's an assortment of that sort of shit.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, he just watches so much of this. And I'm just like, all right, like I get the point, like, women are always going on about their rights, but essentially their rights come from us because we let them have them. Okay, I get it. like, but like, but like just to watch it ad nauseum, I'm just like, aren't you bored with this shit? Like, I forget what my point was with that. Like about it's something to do with aggression. Oh, debating. Yeah, debating.
Yeah.
It's just like you need to evolve beyond that, like you've got to like life isn't about arguments. If in fact very little of life is about arguments. Like having an argument, what does it do? Like
No,
it very
nothing.
rarely changes anyone's mind. Every debate bro always says that, well, it'll change someone's mind somewhere. It might, but I want to see the numbers on that.
Never happened to me once. I've never watched a debate and be like, you know what? I've come out of this with the opposite opinion. Like I've watched them back in the day and you're like, you go in like knowing who you're backing. And then no matter what is said, you're like, yeah, my guy won. He totally creamed the other dude. Like, and then you're mad about the things like maybe the other guy, if they did make good points here in your mind, like trying to work out how he's wrong about it. Like it doesn't work. And if anything, it sort of pushes people like further into their opinions. And yeah, I've never like walked away from an argument with someone and be like, yeah, I changed that guy's mind. I'm like, nah, he like thinks that retarded shit even more than he did before I talked to him. But yeah, like on the like base guy debating women or whatever, like remember the like Gavin McInnes debated that like on his podcast what, 10 years ago or whatever. It was like some chick put up some like sticker about like end white supremacy. He's like, why don't you come on my podcast? And then he just like made her look like an idiot because like, he's obviously like charismatic and sort of smart and stuff. I was like, that was it for me. I'm like, I'm good now. I've seen enough like guys debate women. That was funny because he's funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But, like,
yeah.
then if I have to watch like what's Crowder, Stephen Crowder or someone do it, I'm like, yeah, no, this is just tedious now.
Closet case, by the way, total.
Oh,
Yeah. But yeah, so I think it is tedious. Like once you've seen that sort of thing, once you've seen them all. I'm very curious what you used to argue with people on the streets about, though.
just anything. If they just did something like I used to just, and this is my fault.
That's
too.
your Italian side.
Yeah, like I wouldn't, if someone had done something that I perceived as like inconsiderate to me, and especially if I was at work, I was like a delivery driver and someone parked in the loading zone to go buy a boba tea. I never started the conversation with like, hey, sorry, I know you probably don't realize, but this is actually like the park for me. You're not actually allowed to park. I never started the conversation that way. Like, hey, mate, the fuck do you think you're doing parking here? Like, sort of thing. Like, I remember like going into a boba tea shop to get a guy and just yelling in his face. And then I was like I'm pretty sure this guy's about to punch me. And then he just was like, remained calm and just like, okay, I'll move. And I was kind of impressed by the way he handled himself because I was like, because I just would run into the situation without really thinking of like the consequence. And maybe I kind of wanted an altercation, I think, a little bit on some level. I'm
Mm.
surprised I'd never had my head punched in, to be honest. Like,
Mm.
there's a few tense times where I'd probably look back and be like, yeah, fair enough. Um,
So now that you're on the analyst couch, what changed, Matthew? What changed for you? Why are you not like that anymore?
I think I just realized I didn't like how it felt afterwards. Like, I didn't like how it ruined my day. It didn't like the adrenaline spike, and then like the afterwards, like like you sort of feels like being mad feels good. Like when
Mm.
you get angry, it feels good and you want to keep going with it, but then it's sort of like it's like just like yeah, it's like an adrenaline spike. It's like doing drugs or whatever. It feels good coming up, but then you got to like deal with the come down, and as you get older, like the come down gets harsher, and the coming up like isn't as fun and gets boring. So I think it's just that, like just over like just yelling at enough strangers and getting enough arguments. And I used to be kind of like less confrontational with people like I knew. And so I would just take it out on the general public. You know what I mean? Like, so maybe it was also just becoming like more assertive in all over. But like, yeah, I think I just like slowly learned that this wasn't really like a healthy way to deal with these things. I didn't like the way of feeling. And like, I was probably like increasing my odds of, you know, getting like the shit kicked out of me. Because you say it to the wrong guy who's just going to be like, I don't care how fucking correct you are about where I should be parking. I'm just going to beat the shit out of you because I can.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
I'm not confident in my ability to do well in a fight.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm. Excellent. Yeah. Well, I think you've really grown. I think probably the Rishi has helped too, right?
yeah, you're right. That probably did help a
When,
bit.
when you say as well that you weren't assertive in your personal life, are you more like confrontational in your personal life now, or are you
I
just
don't want to be confrontational. Like,
mm,
the last few years especially led to a lot of arguments with friends and stuff like that. I don't even think I need to say any more on that topic,
mm.
why. But like,
Did you
again,
lose friends?
Um, not really, but I don't have that many friends.
Yeah.
Like I have people that I definitely like respect a little less,
Hmm.
and I have like a relative who like was already I didn't like them very much, but now like we don't really talk. But it's not like we ever had a thing. It's just she became a complete libtard about the COVID nonsense, and
Hmm.
um, so I don't think so, really. Maybe there are people who just don't talk to me. But I've sort of, I'm like 37 now. Like, you just, your friendship circle just grows smaller. You just like lose contact with people. Like, I'm sort of a loner in some ways. Like, I can go without like a lot of social interactions, really. So I don't think I really specifically lost any friends that really mattered or anything like that. But maybe there's someone who like, I just don't even know, like hates me and doesn't want to talk to me. But again, I wasn't like being super like open on social media and posting about it or anything. So I probably wasn't talking to that person anyway. It's just like, I don't know. Yeah, not
Mm.
really. I'd say no. Did you?
No, not really. But then I'm sort of the same. I'm a bit of a loner as well, and very independent. But much to my partner's chagrin, actually, I'm like too independent.
Yeah.
But like, yeah. But yeah, so you were saying, so you're not really confrontational in your personal life. You just chilled out with that as
I
well.
try to like now. There was a while where I would take the bait like every time. Like if someone said like, especially when you're like first getting like really red pilled, like someone says something, you're like, no, actually socialism's blah blah blah. Like you know what I mean. And now I realize like don't need to take the bait anymore. Like again,
Mm.
it's like a thing I didn't like the feeling of. But like I guess in like my earlier 20s, I would be just sort of like less confrontational or like especially if it was just something like I didn't want to bring up a thing and start a fight with a friend or something, but then like a guy on the street would just like friggin' like whatever park in my spot and I was just like straight up like yelling at him like so and yeah, and even probably in instances where I was in the wrong, just like if someone had to go at me, like just be immediately defensive and just like you sort of learn that like if you just like come at someone with like psychotic energy, like then they kind of like whoa, and might like sort of walk away and back down. But like
Mm.
again, it's like you afterwards are left like thinking about that and being like, yeah, like I'm the lunatic here. Like that's not like I didn't like just win that argument. Like they just were like didn't like they just had better stuff to do and didn't want to like you know what I mean? It's like if you walk past like a crazy homeless guy on the street yelling at you, you're not going to be like, "Oh, I have to discuss this with him and stuff. You're just going to be like, I'm just going to get away from this lunatic like as quick
Yeah,
as I can.
yeah. Well, actually, just before we started recording, there was a guy I think on meth in the car park across the road from us, just like going crazy. I've seen junkies before, but he was really going off, and I'm just like. I would have been when I was younger, I would have just been like, oh, very empathetic and like he's got a problem. And I do still think that he does have a problem. But now I'm just like, oh, he's possessed by demons.
Yeah. And Melbourne
and
has some crazy street junkies. Like
That's
last
right.
time I was there, I was like, because in Brisbane, they're all kind of like just sit up against a wall and they all like don't really bother you.
Mm,
In Melbourne, they're all like in your face and like spazzing out and yelling
hmm
shit. And then you'll see someone who looks normal and then they'll just like, ah, and start like headbutting a
mm,
sign or something. And I was
hmm
like when I was there, I was like, is there a new drug on the street that I have not heard of? Like, what is going on? Is this what
Probably.
fentanyl does to people?
I don't know. Do we have fentanyl here? I'm not sure if we do, but
Yeah, I'd imagine so.
mm.
Pretty
But
sure when I was in hospital recently, they gave me fentanyl, but like I think that's like because it's a cheaper. I don't know.
opiate. Yeah.
Yeah, I think they do use it medicinally for that
Mm,
reason, but like the street fentanyl is probably pretty nasty.
mm.
Um,
Well, back to the like when you were saying when you're going crazy about the person in your spot. That's really interesting because that really highlights some of the stuff that Freud's getting at in this book, which is that you know you went you had a SPAC attack about this guy because he didn't follow the civilized rules of our society, right? But like
and I'm repressing my anger in other respects, and so
yeah,
it's
yeah, yeah. So it's
coming
just
out
coming
here.
out. Yeah, exactly. So it's a perfect example of what he's talking about there.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, that and I think that's a good segue to start talking about the film, which is
Okay. Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
Which like Hitchcock in general, like I said at the top, is sort of like a very Freudian filmmaker. I when I posted this, like we'll be doing this next on X, on the pod account. Someone replied and said, "Oh, you should have done this movie. This is the Freudian Hitchcock movie. I forget which one it was, but it wasn't Psycho, which is also a Freudian movie. It's got the mother and stuff. But I think like there's no the Freudian psychoanalytic movie. They kind of all are. Like, I
Yeah.
think he's very aware of these tensions in society and the psychoanalytic tradition. And so I chose Frenzy. One of the reasons I wanted to do this one is because I hadn't seen it, to be quite honest.
Oh,
But
nice.
also what I'd read about it, I think kind of ties nicely in with what the book talks about. So yeah, this is which one was it? It wasn't his last one. It was the last one he made in England, though. So he went back to England in the 70s and made this one, and this was the last one he did. I think it was followed by another two, though, or another one. But yeah, this I love this film. It
Yeah.
was so good.
Yeah.
I wasn't expecting it to be this good, because when filmmakers get to the end of their career, it's sort of like, they're phoning in it a little bit. I'm thinking like Scorsese, Coppola, they're kind of just like their latest films have been pretty average, to say the least.
I mean, I haven't seen them, but I
yeah.
heard the discourse about them.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. But so yeah, Frenzy is obviously it was in 1972. I like that all of the actors I'd never seen before, bar one.
Was that the guy from Keeping Up Appearances?
There's the guy from Keeping Up Appearances.
Yeah.
And no, two. There was another one. What was it? I think she was the secretary. I can't remember.
Oh, yeah, with the glasses.
She was the witch in. Oh no, that wasn't her. One of them was the witch in Willow. The 80s movie.
Yeah, with the midget.
Yeah. Which they that actually sent me down a rabbit hole where I looked up Willow and I found out, I didn't even know this, that Disney Plus did like a Willow sequel series.
Oh, really?
And apparently it was like really, it was panned because it was like really kind of, even the woke people thought it was too woke. Like it was just really like, you know,
Oh gosh.
the baby who Willow saves was like non-binary or something. I don't know what was going on, but like in a fantasy world. And
Just hadn't been assigned a gender yet. That's
yeah,
all.
yeah. And what I this is just another tangent, but I read about it and I just found it really funny is that obviously it was critically panned, no one watched it. And then this is the brutality of Disney now with Disney Plus. I think it came out in 2022. And then it was cancelled. It wasn't, renewed. And then they removed it like less than a year later. So it's gone forever. Like it's not, then they make these shows and then they just delete them from history. Like,
Yeah.
So that is nowhere to be found. Like Tears in the Rain. Just
Sucks for like the one guy who probably liked it. Like, he's just like, oh, well, no one else liked it, but at least I can revisit it.
yeah, but you can't. So
Yeah.
it's really funny how like disposable like all of this streaming content is. It particularly the stuff that is like all based on member berries and like nostalgia, like just all gone. If it's not selling, cut it out. It goes to the ET landfill, as Jack says,
Yeah,
Like,
I'm sick of streaming because it sucks. Like, I'll add movies. Like, Stan, the Australian streaming one, was good for a minute. And I remember, like, oh, they have like every Cronenberg and Catherine Breillat and even like Gaspar Noé films, and I added them all to my list. And then when I'd go to watch them, they'd all been like taken off there.
yeah.
And then even like at Disney Plus, I was watching Lost, and then the episode I was up to just kept, we wouldn't play. And it wasn't like the no internet because it let me play other shows and even other episodes of Lost. And then just like 3 nights in a row, it just wouldn't let me play the episode I was up to. So I was like, I guess I'll fucking torrent it anyway. And so it's just like, yeah, it's like not even reliable and yeah, like things like Always Sunny, they take down like episodes, like because of blackface or whatever. So it's like, yeah, screw this. Like, I'm not paying for this shit if I don't even like have it on demand. Like when I want to watch it, it's like a whole pain in the ass anyway. I'll just fucking torrent it.
I feel like DVDs, if you want to collect them, they're going to start to get really expensive if they haven't already. I haven't looked into it.
I don't think they have yet, except for like some things, like if they're really rare and they're not on streaming. But like you can still go to like thrift stores and, find things that are $1 or whatever. But I reckon it probably will happen at some point. They'll become like, especially if they take down movies and stuff. But who knows? Maybe like, because they are drifting away from the like woke censorship thing, which may come back again in another 10, 15 years. But so it'd be interesting to see how it goes. I mean, I always just look in op shops and stuff for DVDs and, I have a ton. So
yeah,
didn't have Frenzy. I have a lot of Hitchcocks, but Frenzy was one I didn't have on DVD.
So this movie is great. It takes place in London because, Hitchcock's come back and he kind of filmed it around Covent Garden, I think it was, which is where he grew up. So like it was a very nostalgia film for him towards the end of his career there. And sort of follows this guy who it's a wrongly accused sort of thriller. But the interesting thing about it, I think, is that the guy's kind of a dirtbag, like who's wrongly accused. Like he used to be a RAF pilot, and he becomes a prime suspect in these like murders, these necktie murders, where these women get strangled by a tie. And he's like kind of a dick to his like ex-wife. He's kind of a bit of a loser and like just a philanderer and stuff. And so I liked that. So he wasn't a completely innocent guy. And I think that kind of lends into the Freudian stuff, as well. Like that, almost like he kind of does feel guilt for the murders, even though he didn't do them as well. It's this super ego thing, I guess. Like, but yeah, you find out it's not a mystery who done it. You find out very quickly that it's his friend Bob, who is kind of a charming fruit merchant, which I love this character so much because he's like a fruit merchant, or here's a new word if no one's ever heard it. The technical term for a fruit merchant is a costermonger. So look that one up and use it in Scrabble if you want. But basically he wears like a mod suit while he's
Yeah.
selling fruit.
He's got like the yellow hair.
And the yellow blonde hair, yeah. So yeah, he strangles women with the tie. The first scene is really funny as well. Oh, it's not funny, but like, you see a woman floating naked in the Thames. And then the gawking crowd is there. Hitchcock's cameo is in that crowd in the first scene. Did you clock it or?
I missed it actually. I know that he always has a cameo, but I
Yeah.
wasn't really thinking to look for it.
Yeah, I think towards the later films, like he just got sick of the thing and was just like, just put me in the first shot,
Yeah.
like
Get it out of the way.
Yeah. But
One less extra have to pay.
exactly. But and so that first scene where you see the woman's body floating in the water, apparently for the trailer, like the promo for this, they did like Hitchcock himself floating in the water, like naked, but it was like like this big fat guy, like
Yeah.
But yeah, so Bob, this friend of what's his name, Blaney, he gets
Dicko.
he gets he gets fingered for this murder, and circumstantial evidence kind of ties him to it. And he becomes sort of like the scapegoat for police. And it's just like his, trying to avoid police. And then like you also follow the killer and his like almost, I kind of describe this as like, the comedy of errors. It's kind of like a thriller of errors, particularly towards that middle point where like, he kills the woman and like leaves his pin, or she grabs his pin. It's like, fuck. And then like tries to, it's kind of like a very early, Coen Brothers type vibe, like,
Yeah.
the murderer is kind of an idiot. Like, and that, I found that really entertaining, particularly in a 70s kind of gray brown movie as well. Like, I just found that it really kind of tickled me. Yeah. So yeah, basically it's just like Blaney trying to clear his name, and then he kind of realizes that his besuited fruitmonger friend is behind it and like vows to kill him. And then eventually like the Scotland Yard police constable guy kind of works it out, and everything ends up it's tied up really nicely. But the journey is just so fun. Like it's very propulsive plot, like which is very, very Hitchcock. Like he's always got those plots always really hit. But yeah, the acting's really good. The script is amazing. I love the banter between everyone as well. Like there are so many hilarious cutting lines between people. And that's what's really like, it's the joy of this film, I think, is the dialogue mostly.
Even like at the beginning when the police are discussing the case, and then they like talk to that old lady at the bar. She's like, I hear he rapes them before he kills them, but she's like excited about it.
Yeah. He says something like, what does he say? He says something like,
like about
we can only hope, or something. It was something
Yeah.
like distasteful like that. And then the woman is like, ooh, like she finds it really kind of titillating. And there's so many funny things about the fruit merchant guy as well, like because he's such a lad, like
He's like a car salesman kind of guy,
Yeah. And then when he's before he rapes and kills the ex-wife of his friend who he scapegoats. I love that scene where he's like being really creepy and lecherous or whatever, and then we've got a saying in the fruit business: don't squeeze the goods until they're yours.
Yeah. And then when he's like raping, he's like, lovely.
And the very clear body doubles like that that they cut away to like, because I think this is the first Hitchcock movie that has nudity as well.
Yeah,
So
I was
there's,
wondering
like,
about that because I've never seen it in anything. I've not seen that many of his, but yeah.
Yeah, and so, but it's clearly body doubles because it's kind of the position of the heads and stuff when he like tears off her bra and stuff like that. I really love. Yeah, so
I was gonna say, speaking of body doubles, have you seen the movie Body Double, the De Palma film?
Yeah. I covered that.
Oh, you did?
Last year. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah, right. Yeah, well, there's that in the Dress to Kill. They're both like Hitchcockian, sort of
Mm.
like whatever you call like.
Erotic thrillers.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
both great. Yeah,
It's so good.
yeah.
Um, I really like the scene where Blaney and his girlfriend, I guess you would say, from the pub, Babs, kind of escape to the hotel, and they do this like dodgy, like they get the hotel under the name of Oscar Wilde, and
Have
then
you
yeah.
have you seen the 39 Steps, that Hitchcock film? Like it's a pretty
No,
older
I haven't
one.
seen that one. No.
Might be like 40s or something.
Mm.
It's a lot like this, but obviously just older and jankier and, not as explicit with a lot of stuff. But there's like, it's a guy who gets wrongly accused of a murder, but it's like this like espionage, sort of thriller plot. And he's like got to escape the police. And then there's like little things like women helping him out along the way. And he gets like handcuffed to some chick and they go and hire, like they rent out like a hotel and like is a lot of things that have very similar scenes to this movie, but obviously like just because when it was made it was just they couldn't be quite as explicit, and this is a much more entertaining film. But is this also a remake? Because when I was looking it up, like a 1945 film called Frenzy came up, and I know he's remade his own films before, like The Man Who Knew Too Much and stuff like that, right? He's like, so I wonder if he like remade Frenzy, unless Frenzy is just an alternate title for the 39 Steps or something.
Probably like, because this one was based on a novel, actually. It was called Goodbye Piccadilly, Farewell Leicester Square by Arthur LeBurn. So it was based on that, and that was written in the 1960s, I think. So that's
okay.
It was based off that.
Okay, well then maybe there's just another film called Frenzy. Maybe it's not even him. I just, I meant to like Google it more before the episode and forgot.
There's so many like great, like I said, the dialogue's really funny, but like just little moments of like bit part characters as well. Like I was talking about the hotel bit, like the innkeeper and his wife like work out that like he's the guy that the police are looking for, and there's just like this it just made me laugh so much because it was like the wife of the innkeeper was just like, oh my God, and like just really like shaken up by it, and like he said, oh yeah, it's the guy who's staying in the Cupid room. And she's like, not in the Cupid room.
Yeah, that's classic.
Oh my God, it's so funny. Like it is so funny. Like it's got a great film noir kind of, what you expect from Hitchcock. It's got a great plot, but it is so fucking funny at the same time. Like, and he obviously does have a lot of dark humor in his films, but it's often like a little bit more, it's usually in the visuals or like the irony of something happening or whatever. But it's just like so many hilarious lines and like situations in this film, which I just really appreciated. The other scene I really like is there's a couple of scenes of the constable and his wife who's just taken up making like he's cooking like exotic stuff like
soup de poisson.
Yeah, that's right. Well, he's like, and it's really smart from a storytelling point of view as well, because those scenes are when the constable is going through like talking about sadism and all this like psychobabble crap, and like some how like someone can appear normal and be like have sort of sadistic impulses, and he's going through all the profiling of the serial killer and everything. And yeah, meanwhile, she's just serving him up all of this like slop. Although there was one dish which I would have eaten, which looked
the quail.
Nice. The quail, yeah.
Oh yeah, that looked great.
I love quail.
Roast grapes. Have you had roast grapes? That's really good.
Oh no, I haven't. That
kind of tastes like applesauce kind of thing. Yeah. I actually ate some recently.
Amazing. And then when she's talking about margaritas.
Yeah, like it's something no one's heard of. It didn't feel kind of like he was meant to be setting it in the 70s too. Like it felt like, with the like hotel, they had to like say they were a married couple to get a room together. Like
that could have just been England in the 70s.
I guess so, yeah.
Surprise me. But and in that scene where she's like cooking it, there's another scene where she cooks him up like ham hocks, like ham feet.
Yeah.
Like pig's feet, and she's like talking about it and like talking it up, and he's looking at it and really kind of disgusted, but kind of hiding it. And she says, "I put it in the same sauce the French use for tripe." And then he's like, "That's comforting."
Yeah. Well, like later when she like she's like they're talking about getting Blaney out of prison because he's figured out, and she's like, "Oh, I'll have to cook him up a meal or something." He's like, "Well, you guess he's used to the prison food, so he'll eat anything." And then she just like sculls the margarita that Kylo finds.
Oh no, and she's also said when she was talking about a margarita and explaining it, she's like, it's got triple sec, and then the way she said tequila was really weird. She said tequila.
Yeah, I thought she said like tequila, like she said it was
yeah, it's something like that. Like it was just really weird. Like not clearly not the proper Spanish pronunciation. It was like tequila. Tequila. Yeah, that was so funny. Like those little character bits, they were like the stars of this movie.
Yeah.
Like they were so funny.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like the movie Falling Down. Like
yes, I fucking love that movie so
the Robert
much.
Duvall character in that when he's like on the phone with his wife. Those are the funniest scenes in the movie. So he's just like with the phone making like these stupid faces. Or even at the end when he's like with the like guy on the pier, and then it like quickly like flashes the gun in this like real funny way.
Yeah, that is a good film. We should do that one day.
You should get Detective Wolfman to talk about it. Have you read?
Is it like that one?
Well, he just has he has this great tweet where it's about like how like it's actually about a black man, like the main character, and then like you read through it and you're like, this checks out hardcore.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like he's like I don't know. You should just look up on his page, like search for Falling Down. I can't remember exactly. It's hilarious. Like this long tweet thread of like why it's that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love films where a man especially just like has continual freak out. Like just escalate. Like that movie is made for me because I love that genre of films. There's not many movies like that, but I just love when that happens, especially when it's like a good actor like Michael Douglas, and it's always so fun. But I've seen that movie so many times.
Yeah, I love this like that like pumping like like have you seen Brawl in Cell Block 99?
No, is that a
Zala?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just great because it's just like constant, just like escalating like violence and action and stuff. It's like a brutal movie. Yeah, it has that just like same, just constant, just like it's like Crank, but like taken seriously or something like that. Like just like obviously Crank's a silly movie, but yeah, still has that same like constant pumping and escalation, and that's just a bit more video gamey or something.
Yeah, I love that guy. He's really good. Zala.
Yeah.
Although JDO has beef with him, so
like personal beef.
No, well, talk to him about it. But like, apparently, he basically stole Bone Tomahawk from JDO.
What?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah. I think it was Bone Tomahawk anyway. But yeah. Anyway, regular listeners will know who I'm talking about. But but yeah. So, Frenzy. Anything else you liked about Frenzy or enjoyed? Like any kind of resonances with the book?
Yeah. First, just like the whole movie is great. I really enjoyed it. I was looking forward to watching it because like I always enjoyed every Hitchcock movie I've seen, and I want to watch them all eventually. Yeah, I guess like, it's sort of about society and repression and law and like, because clearly the killer is like his sort of needs aren't able to be fully satisfied. Like he tries to go to that dating agency thing and he wants to like, it seems like he tries to like, quote unquote legally find an outlet for his desires, but then like he gets turned away at all these things. And then, so I guess he just starts murdering the women. I think it's funny too, like he's like murdering them with the neckties, but like the necktie thing never comes into it as like a evidence. Like they're like, that was his tie. We seen that tie on that guy. Or
I like that because that would have just been an obvious
I know.
like thing, but like they didn't go there.
Or even when like the secretary described the guy that didn't kill the main character, Dicko or whatever, like she's like describes him down to a T, but she forgets to mention his tie. Like that's the only thing she
Yes,
doesn't.
yes.
And she's like, I'm used to describing men in this job or whatever. And so yeah,
And the tie is kind of a fetish object too, like,
yeah,
fetishization being like such a Freudian thing, like that. He always uses the tie to kill them.
yeah,
Oh, speaking of that, like the comedy of errors thing as well, one thing I forgot to mention was like the potato truck.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That's
That
a
is
funny kind of like slapsticky almost sort of.
yeah, yeah. How her foot, like he basically takes disposes of one of the bodies, the killer does, in a potato truck. And then he realizes that she's got the pin on her, like that would incriminate him. So the killer basically rushes down back to the truck, gets in the back, and then the truck sort of takes off. So it's just this really slapstick kind of scene where he's trying to find it in amongst all of this potato and potato dust, and then her body is just like flailing around, and her foot like keeps smacking him in the face. This movie is so hilarious.
Yeah.
But like, and then he sort of finds it, and then when he kind of gets out, he's just all covered in like potato dust. Oh, it's so
That was like
good.
the incriminating evidence is they get the clothes brush from the diner or whatever. It's still got the potato dust on it.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, it was a lint roller, it would have got thrown out, the little bits of
Mhm.
paper. I wouldn't have that anymore.
Yeah. But yeah, it's such a witty film, and it does definitely, tie in with the Freudian stuff. Like I like that the killer Rusk was very sort of charming and sociable,
Mm,
but couldn't get a date. And so it's really kind of like perhaps it prefigures what's going on with like dating between men and women these days. But then again, he's got this like primal, monstrous sort of hidden side. And then, the return of he can't find an outlet for it. So, it just erupts in catastrophic ways as kind of Freud might say. So I thought it was great. I really, honestly, I just picked this almost at random, but more because, I read the synopsis and was like, this looks fun. And it looks like it tied in with Freud and what we were going to talk about today. But I was like really pleasantly surprised with it. Like it was so entertaining. Like Hitchcock's always entertaining, but this one especially, it was just like, I was like, it was a thrill ride, but it was also really fucking funny. And like, that is the best sort of movie to me.
yeah.
Thrills and spills and lots of laughs. So, yeah.
Yeah, no. Definitely a good pick on that one for sure.
Yeah. Any other final thoughts on either of these?
Nah.
And want to get some aggression out? Like, is there anything really pissing you off at the moment that you just want to like blurt out to the world?
Nah, I'm chill at the moment. I'm just, at one with the universe and all of that. Love my fellow man, even the guy at the post office.
Mm-hmm.
It's funny. That guy always complained about the post office. He actually made me laugh today.
There you go.
And I was like, afterwards, I was like, hey, he was all right today. I'm chill. I'm on holidays and stuff. I'm going to the Gold Coast tomorrow, so I'm in good mood. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is it for this episode. Next episode, I can't remember what we're doing, but we're doing Wicked. So tune in for that.
I don't think I'll be able to make it, unfortunately.
And
I did start reading the book and I like it.
Yeah. You will be on Rare Candy again soon, doing L. Ron Hubbard. Yes.
I'm gonna be on like 3 or 4 Rare Candy episodes coming.
Of course.
soon. I know.
Basically.
I keep being like, you could swap me out with someone else. I won't be offended. And they're like, no, that's fine. So I think I'm doing Miles Davis, L. Ron Hubbard, the Welbeck Book Club, Day of the Jackal. That might be it. So yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you're on secondment to Rare Candy from the Getting Lit podcast. So
yeah.
All right. Well, yeah. Awesome. Go find Frenzy. It's a really, really great film.
Torrent
also, torrent it. You can also find like janky versions on YouTube if you want. You'll probably get like Portuguese subtitles and stuff, but it's still in English. But you can find it that way as well. Really, really fun film. I can't recommend it enough. And also, I can't recommend Freud enough. If nothing else, even if you don't agree with what he's sort of saying, you kind of see where a lot of this stuff that like Hitchcock is touching on and whatever, lots of art from the 20th century in particular kind of comes from. You see like the kind of the theory behind it, if you want to get all theory cell. Some people don't want to do that, and that's fine. All right. Well, I'll see you next time, I guess. Got anything to plug? No?
Nah, nothing.
No, just the rare candy
just
stuff.
this podcast and the rare candy.
Right.
Yeah.
It's
All right. Well, see you next time.
See ya.
side. It's in the back. The front. No, it's in the back. No, it's in the front. No, it's in the back. They shoved it in the back. They put it in the back. All the love in the back. Get in the back. All the love, get in the back, boy. And they call it your subconscious. Remember Freud? And the front is your computer. And I call him old ego is a too much thing. Old ego is a too much thing. He'll make you fool yourself. You'll think you're somebody else. Look out now. Oh, the trouble you bring. It makes you want to jump on a band fight. And you can't stand not to be right. It'll make you lie, make you cheat just so you won't be beat. It'll make you get on out of sight. You get afraid you're gonna act like a clown. And do you get mad when somebody puts you down? Your heart's a pumping and your paranoid's just jumping. Look out, ego is a too much thing. When everything seems going so fine, old ego puts itself on in a bind. Your certainty turns to doubt, and then you start flipping out. Then you ease on out of your